So welcome to you all, croeso I bawb this afternoon. I hope for those of you that's been watching so far, I hope you've enjoyed the weekend as much as we have. And so this session we've got Beth is going to talk now about some of the memories project that we've been running over the last few years and some of the stories that she's been collecting and pulling together. At 7:30 tonight we will have the quiz of the festival, so Laura Evans will be the quiz master for that one. I promise that will be a good one as well. So without further ado, I'm just going to introduce you to Beth Thompson, who's our Living Seas Engagement Officer down at Wildlife Trust of South and West Wales. Unfortunately, Beth will be leaving us at the end of February for pastures new, but we are very lucky that she stays with us in the trust. So she'll be moving to Skomer Island as the visitor officer. So hopefully this summer we'll be able to go there. And so if you do head over to Skomer, please make sure you say hello to Beth. So you weren't here to see me talking, so I'm going to pass you on to Beth now. So enjoy, and please put questions in the chat, and there'll be opportunities at the end for Beth to answer your questions. So over to you, Beth.
Thank you, Nia. Hi, everyone. Bear with me 2 seconds as I share my screen. If anyone who's having any issues seeing what's going on the screen, as Nia says, do pop something in the chat, and we'll see if we can figure it out. Ooh. Excuse me. Fantastic. So I believe that is working. Nia, is that working for you?
Yeah, that's working fine.
Fantastic. Awesome. So hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining me this Sunday afternoon. I'm not sure what the weather is doing with you all, but it's been a lovely sunny morning here in Newquay, though it is somewhat cloudy and looking like it may rain now this afternoon. So as Nia has said, and as you're hopefully all expecting to hear today, we're going to be having a look at some of the incredible memories and stories that we've been collecting since 2018 as part of the Living Seas Wales project. Now, before we get into detail, I want to give you all a very quick overview on what the Living Seas Wales project is and why we should be collecting memories. That is a question we get asked quite a lot, and I think it's an important one to address. As Nia said, if anyone does have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat and we will try our best to address them at the end. So without further ado, some of you, many of you, in fact, if you have been taking part in this weekend already, may be familiar with Living Seas Wales, but for those of you who are not, who are we? Why are we talking to you today? So Living Seas Wales is a collaboration between the North Wales Wildlife Trust and the Wildlife Trust of South and West Wales. It started in 2018 and is funded by the National Lottery Heritage Fund and the People's Postcode Lottery. So any of you who play the People's Postcode Lottery, thank you very, very much. We have an absolutely awesome staff team, a very small staff team, but we also have an incredible team of volunteers. Now, since 2018, that team have amassed a huge 13,500 volunteer hours. So they are absolute legends. You can see some of their fantastic faces just here carrying out various opportunities. So if any of you are volunteers for the project or volunteers at all, please know you're absolutely awesome, and everybody very much appreciates the time that you put in. But as I said, we also have a small staff team. You can see them all here. So we're based in North and South Wales. So if you have been taking part in this weekend, probably recognise some of these faces, but you've got Nia, Dawn and Eve in North Wales, and then Sarah, Laura and myself, Beth, based down in South and West Wales. So I'm talking to you today rather than any of the other wonderful people in the team because of what I've been doing with the project. So I'm the Living Seas Engagement Officer for the Wildlife Trust of South and West Wales, and I'm based at Cardigan Bay Marine Wildlife Centre in Newquay. You can see a little photo on the right-hand side of the screen there of the centre itself. So I started working at CBMWC in January of last year, so just before 2020 started getting a bit chaotic, I think we could say, and I lead on the marine memories component of the project. Now, anyone who's interested in learning more about what we do at CBMWC, there is a link on the screen there, but I will pop all these links in the chat at the end. So the real reason I'm talking to you today is about the Marine Memories project. So the first thing to address, really, the first thing we get asked when we start talking about the project is, what is a marine memory? So memories can be historical records, they can be anecdotal stories about marine wildlife and heritage, they can be pictures, stories, artifacts, memories. You know, we have absolute, you know, picture albums, things like that up the loft, literally anything. So all the examples here on the screen, the 3 photos, are marine memories. So the first one here, we've got a photo of a European otter, which was sent in by Lisa Morgan. This was taken in 2011. So Lisa was the warden on Ramsey Island at the time. And this otter is actually in Ramsey Sound and was fishing in the sound, completely unfazed by the power of the water or the large gulls circling overhead. It's very, very impressive behaviour, and not really a mammal that we expect to see in the ocean. We do know that they forage and they hunt there. And some really interesting science was actually done studying the scats of this otter and various others to see what their diet composed of on Ramsey. So this was a really fantastic story for us to collect. The second photo you can see is of Nuki in 1986. Now this was sent in by a lady called Debbie, and she was visiting Nuki on holiday, and she'd also been here 3 years previously in 1983 with her girl guiding group, and she remembered the town as a really lovely, quiet holiday spot. Now, I'm sure anyone who lives in Newquay would agree it is a lovely holiday spot, but I'm not sure they would describe it as quiet. So it's interesting to kind of see how our coastal towns have changed over the past 50 years and beyond. The third photo you can see on the screen here, not necessarily the most eye-catching of the images, but this is a newspaper article from the North Wales Express, and it was actually published in 1897. So, you know, a long, long time ago. And it actually is probably one of the nicer newspaper articles that we were able to collect as part of our search through the archives. And it's a lovely story of a porpoise chasing a salmon near to Porthmadog, and the salmon was eventually caught by a gentleman called John Humphreys and weighed in at 19 pounds. Now, a lot of the newspaper articles, as I will talk about in a little bit, are not quite as friendly as this one, so it's a lovely story that we've been able to share. And so the second question that we'd often get asked when we say we're collecting memories is why? Why are you collecting people's memories? So people's memories and skills are constantly at risk of being lost. This can sound a little bit morbid, especially at the moment, but in reality, I'm sure all of us could turn around and raise a hand and say, yeah, my mom told me a story about something they did 20 years ago, or my grandma told me something 50 years ago. And we do forget the details. We're all very prone to that. And unless those details are written down, we might get a vague overview, but the actual full story can get lost. So that's why it's so important that we are sharing memories in this way. The second reason is that collecting memories is a really interesting way that we can raise awareness of how our seas are changing. And this links really nicely to the next point, is it gives us an idea to gauge a better understanding of conservation baselines. Now that sounds really technical. All this means is that we have a better understanding of what our seas have looked like in the past, what they look like today, and what they may look like in 10, 15, 20 years time. And it actually allows us to stop and kind of think about how we want our oceans to look and the things that we can do to protect them. So it's really, really important for conservation and policy going forward. It also has implications for marine monitoring. And finally, probably my favourite one, to engage people in conversation about the marine environment. I think it's fantastic when people get animated talking about the marine environment and the ocean. And the picture on the screen here on the left-hand side is actually a really good example of this. Now, this was sent in by Peter Williams, and it's his uncle on a boat called Nancy up at Ymunwch. Now, Peter's uncle, who was a boy at the time, actually was helping Peter's grandfather, so his uncle's father, collecting gull eggs for recovering soldiers during World War II. Now this is a really fascinating story. We're going to touch a little bit more on it in just a moment, but Peter himself remarked that this was probably not well known, even necessarily in the local community. Certainly everyone I've spoken to about it has been like, what? I didn't know that happened. So it's fascinating how we can engage people in conversation about these fascinating stories that are at risk of being lost if we do not share them. Now, as I said, Peter's story, along with a few others, was actually recently featured on Living Seas Wales Live. This was a really great celebration which took place about 2 weeks ago. We had Eve from the Living Seas Wales team live at Cemlyn, and Sarah live from Cardigan Banbury Wildlife Centre, along with a whole heap of other awesome stuff going on. If you did miss out on this fun, there is a link on the screen here, and I will share this at the end as well, which is allow you to watch it again via YouTube. Now, as part of that, we've produced a segment about our favourite memories, and this is something I want to share with you today. So, bear with me. Now, the footage, as I say, was produced for a live broadcast, and it can be a little bit jumpy over Zoom depending on your Wi-Fi. So I'm going to stop playing it now. So forgive any technical difficulties, bear with it, and it does tend to sort itself out as it goes. So we'll cross our fingers with this one.
We've been overwhelmed at times with the response we've had from you all for our call for memories, and we really wanted to share with you some of our favourites. Now, there's no better way to hear these stories than directly from you, so we're handing over to Mike Alexander as he recalls a rather eventful weekend in September 1988.
It was quite late in the afternoon. A phone call from a person, he didn't give his name, but I recognised him as a local farmer. He said there's a monster on the beach. You've got to do something about it. It's bigger than a cow, and it's a bit like a Volkswagen car. And that was it. Going down. Well, I thought I'd better go and investigate. So up to Harlech, and sure enough, there on the beach there was this monster, as he described it. In fact, it was a turtle. I'll never forget arriving on the steps in front of the museum in Cardiff, and Peter coming out, and the shock on his face was absolutely amazing. He realised straight away that we couldn't handle it there. It was far too big. But the museum, fortunately, had a coal store near the docks in Cardiff. So off we went to the coal store, and he hired a crane. And it was as the crane lifted the turtle, that we began to realise quite how big it was, because the alarm bells went off. We were exceeding the legal weight that the crane could lift. And the rest, in a sense, is history. It was such an important find that people were involved, interested in all over the world. A team came over from the States to help with an autopsy. And eventually the turtle ended up in this quite spectacular display in Cardiff. There for many years. It's still in Cardiff, and it's still on display, not quite as spectacular as the original.
Now, what's truly remarkable about this leatherback turtle from Harlech is that it was, and in fact remains today, the largest leatherback turtle ever found. The specimen, which it turns out was a male, measured in at a whopping 2.91 metres across the carapace, 2.77 metres across the front flippers, and weighed in at a huge 961.1 kilograms. You can certainly see why the crane was struggling. Incredibly, Mike's story was not unique in that we've heard multiple accounts of leatherback turtles, both dead and alive, from around our shores. Leatherback turtles are in fact summer visitors to Welsh waters, following their stomachs and the blooms of jellyfish that we experience as the water warms. And this is something that they share with our next story. Perhaps not quite so exciting to look at, but any keen anglers or biologists out there may well recognise this as a triggerfish. And this is a fish that's usually found in much warmer waters. As recently as 2016, there was an article in a major tabloid saying new to British waters and new to the fishmonger's slab. And yet this photo was taken in 1997 off Little Haven. And from speaking to divers and fishermen, we're hearing that this species has been in Welsh waters for some time. In fact, based on the records we've received, they seem to be most commonly found washed up on our beaches during and after stormy winter weather. Now, this is interesting because until now, grey triggerfish have generally been perceived as, like the leatherback turtle, a summer visitor to our waters, but clearly they are also around during the colder months. And this is, of course, why collecting your memories has been so important to us. Your stories have provided us with an insight into how our seas are changing and how we may look forward to protect them in the future. They've also allowed us to uncover some really fascinating human stories, reminding us just how intertwined all of our lives are with the sea. I'd like to leave you with one final story from Peter Williams, who recalls his grandfather and uncle undertaking a rather unusual occupation of Ymunwch in the 1940s.
During the war, as you know, there would be lots of casualties, wounded men, soldiers, and all Navy and one of the main things that they used to feed them to boost up their energy was steam legs. My grandfather was hired by the War Department to go out onto the islands offshore here, where the seagulls would be breeding, and they would take one egg out of each nest in order to decimate the breeding system, you know, and they would be brought ashore, where I would imagine there'd be a wagon or some kind of truck, you know, would take these away. Probably the hospitals or where these men used to recuperate.
Like I said, fascinating. We'd like to take the opportunity to thank each and every one of you who've been in touch as part of this project. Your stories are truly what has made it possible. If you would like to find your own memory or explore further, you can do this on our brand new interactive Marine Memories map on our website.
Fantastic. So I hope that worked for everybody. If it didn't, as I said, there is a link and you can go and watch that back on Living Seas Wales Live. As I said, it did work okay in the test run of this, but who knows with technology. But as I said, I do hope you enjoyed hearing some of the incredible stories that we've been lucky enough to have shared with us as part of this project. And that clip really nicely introduces where we've actually gone with your memories and how we're planning on showcasing them to the rest of the world, I suppose. So as part of this project, we've actually collected over 200 memories. So an absolute mass of incredible stories. And they're hosted on a website called People's Collection Wales. Now, we had talked this time last year, in fact, about essentially touring Wales with an exhibition of our memories collection, our favourites. But clearly this has not been possible in the last year. So instead, we've been working to produce an interactive marine memories map, which essentially allows people to access our database of memories and explore further the absolutely awesome marine heritage that we have here in Wales. So I'm going to give you a little taster of that now and kind of show you how you can access this map. So each memory that we've been fortunate enough to have given to us as part of the project has been categorised into the following categories. So you've got charities and research as a purple heart, disasters as a black radiation symbol, divelogs are a dark blue snorkel mask, education and outreach is a red graduation cap, fisheries and food is a green fish, holidays is quite nicely a yellow sunshine. We've got miscellaneous, which is a pink wave, sightings, which is pale blue. You will notice as you look at the screen now that these are all different symbols and they correspond to the type of sighting. So we've got the dolphin symbol for dolphins and porpoises, whales for whales. We've got what else we've got on there? Sharks, the shark fin, and seals, which is, I think it looks a bit more like a sea lion than a seal symbol, but that is the seal. And then the final category, we've got strandings and wildlife rescue. So the idea behind this map essentially is that it provides a really easy, accessible and visual way for people to explore our memory collection without having to trawl through, piles and piles of paperwork. So how does it work? So as with a standard Google Maps, you're able to zoom in on specific locations to explore further. So I live in Newquay, so I have chosen to zoom in on Newquay for our example today. So say I want to know more about this specific dolphin sighting. So I know it's a dolphin, there's a dolphin symbol, and it's this pale blue, so there's a sighting. Simply click on the icon and information loads on the left-hand side regarding this sighting. So it includes a title, sighting of a lone common dolphin 2015, the date, which was the 15th of April 2015, the location, this time being Newquay, Ceredigion, the contributor, who in this case was Dr. Sarah Perry, and also a link to the PCW website, but we will come back to that in just one moment, because you can also click through any images that have been submitted as part of the memory without even having to leave the map. So it's a really nice way to kind of get a feel for the memory without having to go into any detail. You are then, of course, able to explore further, because the information you're seeing on the screen, you're probably thinking, well, it doesn't give us that much information, it's just a nice summary. But as I said, you can click the link to the People's Collection Wales website to explore further. Now, this loads a new web page. And as you'll see in a moment, this will start moving. You can see the full details of the memory. So this includes a description, which varies in length and detail depending on the submission. So this one is quite long. But you can also access copyright information, including who submitted the memory, links to other stories that may be of interest. So, for example, this record is also in the records of other dolphins collection. So it really gives you a way to explore the memories in full. And you can do this for every single memory on the map. And as I said, there's over 200, so literally hours of fun to do this. So how do you actually access the map? So it is actually live. It went live just over a week ago now on our new website. So there's a link here on the screen, which, as I said, I will share with everybody at the end. Now, as you're exploring, there is a little symbol in the top left-hand corner, which allows you to access the legend. So you can break it down into the different categories if you so wish. I will say that for the time being, it's working best in terms of formatting on computers or laptops. We are working on getting it to work in full on tablets and phones, but for the time being, if you do have a laptop or computer, it will work best on that for now, but fingers crossed that will be fixed in the next week or so. So before I finish the presentation and essentially open up for questions, I wanted to address the third most common thing we get asked when we talk about this project, and that is, do you have a favourite memory? Now, as a marine biologist, I think I'm quite biased really in that I find the records of marine life, so megafauna like dolphins, whales and turtles, fascinating. I think they provide a really important talking point and connection when talking about the ocean and the importance of protecting it with the general public. But I actually quite surprised myself when it came to collecting memories when we searched through the archives. I truly could not get over how our interactions and our perceptions of the ocean and the life that lives in it has changed over time. So if we were to just look at these two articles here from 1887 and 1907, you'll see words like monster of the deep, man-eater, they're both to describe a shark, hated as well as another word to describe a shark. We've got whales being described as monsters. There was an article, not on the screen here, that described dolphins as amphibious, which clearly these days we know is not the case. There's literal correspondence has been sent into the papers to warn people about swimming with dangerous companions and monsters that have been spotted in the shallows. And there's musings about how we could actually turn these monsters into profit. I think it's really awesome how much our perception, not all over the world, but certainly here in the UK, has changed regarding the wildlife that we are lucky enough to have off our shores. And it actually left me feeling quite positive about the future of marine life in the UK. And I think it's a really lovely way to finish the presentation today as well. Now, as I said, I will put these links in the chat at the end, but for anybody who wants to learn more about Cardigan Bay Marine Wildlife Centre, rewatch Living Seas Wales Live, explore our marine memories map further, or indeed support either WITSU or the North Wales Wildlife Trust, there are links on the screen here. But I will hand back over to Nia to see if we have any questions. Thank you very much, everybody.
Fantastic, thank you, Beth. I mean, it's just really interesting, and that map is incredible. I know it was it's been a lot of work to pull all that sort of amazing stories, and like you say, we've got way over 200 now, and incredible. And like you say, I think that was a really nice way of finishing it, is actually you look back and then you've got hope for the future. I really like that as summary of that project and what we were trying to do through it. Let me just have a look through comments. We've got, well done Beth, the map looks brilliant, from Gretchen. Fantastic presentation and what a wonderful project by Julia. And Joe, that was fab, Beth. So yeah, great comments there. And if you look in the if you do look in the chats, Beth's putting up all of the links there that you can have. Is anybody, if anybody, there's no questions here, but if anyone wants to ask a question, please put your hand up and then I can bring you into the chat, I think. Hang on, let me put a view, gallery view. Has anyone got any questions?
Mia, sorry, there's a question at the bottom by Becky W. Can we add memories to the map? How do we do that?
So at the moment, we to add memories to the map, it has to go through either myself or Dawn at the moment, who some of you may well have met. So we used to have a live form on the website for submitting memories. Unfortunately, because we've just changed over, that's not live yet at the moment, but you can submit a memory. I'll pop the email address in the chat. If you drop one of us an email, we should be able to get back to you.
Yeah, and hopefully the live website, the form will be up very soon. So if you look at livingseas.wales, that's the new website that we've just come over to, and that's the website where the Shore-nanigans backstage areas held. But that's a new website. It's being translated at the moment, so it'll be fully bilingual. You'll see that there are some of the memories are up there already, but do keep an eye out because we're adding them as we go along now, and there will be a form there that you can submit memories to. We're always keen to hear about any stories or memories or pictures that you have. But yeah, like Beth says, we're in a bit of a transition period at the moment as we're bringing in new websites and coming to the end of some projects. So we've got another question here. So from N, that was very interesting. Sorry, I missed the start. Are the memories all to be current local resident or include people who would be more visitors or who would used to live there? Yeah, so is it for just current local residents or visitors, or who do we want the memories from, basically?
Absolutely. So we've been speaking to pretty much absolutely anyone who's been keen to get involved. There was a couple of photos in the presentation. I'm not sure if you managed to see them or not. From Newquay back in the 1980s. Debbie lives in Nottinghamshire, so definitely not a local. But we're interested, and we've been including some stories from people who've been coming on holiday here, people who used to live here. Certainly for us, the older stories I think have been kind of more, I don't want to say interesting, because the newer stories have been absolutely fascinating as well, but they perhaps provide more insight into how Wales's coast has changed over the years. But at the end of the day, you know, stories that could be submitted from yesterday in 10 years' time would be history. So we've been speaking to people who are local, but also visitors to the area as well.
Great. I mean, I think that leads nicely to the next question, actually, from Emma. Beth, what is your favourite personal marine memory?
No. I don't think I could choose one. There's so many. I actually don't think I could choose one. I love all of them. You know, as I said in the talk, I think I'm quite biased, and you know, particularly we've got some fantastic photos of fluffy seal pups and baby terns, and you know, every time I see them, I'm like, oh, they're so cute. But I think the stories about life on the coast are really interesting. Just to see how the times have changed, really. Gosh, I don't think I could choose one, which sounds like a real cop-out of an answer, but they're just yeah, I've really enjoyed reading and hearing from people. I think my favourite thing, I don't suppose it's an actual memory, but is how excited people get when they're talking on the phone to you about stuff. Clearly we would have had that face-to-face before this last year, but people rightly so get so into what they're talking about, and I think that's probably been my favourite part of the memories. Not quite a favourite memory, but yeah.
Yeah, it's really nice, isn't it, when people just start talking and you can see that memories are coming back to them as they're talking. And yeah, fantastic. Okay, so we're getting really good comments about the map, which is really brilliant idea, and I completely agree. And I think I'm just going to make a point here. When we started thinking about the map and Beth started putting the ideas together, we did ask a developer, like a computer genius person whose job it was to do that kind of thing, and he said, well, it will cost at least £20,000 to do it. And Beth put it all together herself, and I think it's amazing. We don't need that. You just need someone who's got the sort of keenness of Beth and the passion to do it. So thank you, Beth. It is, you know, a lot of people comments here saying it's brilliant, and I completely agree. How did you go about putting out the call for memories? What?
We did lots of different things. I can only comment on what's happened since I joined the team. So as you'll all know, the project started in 2018. So I joined the team January 2020. So there's been a bit of a lag there. We've mostly been putting things out on social media, which clearly misses certain demographics that don't use social media. So in November, we had a Ask Your Grandparents campaign, which went out to try and encourage people to talk to their parents and grandparents, especially during lockdown. You know, it's quite a nice conversation, I think, to have over the phone, looking through old photo albums, and that worked quite well. Otherwise, we've been on radio stations and just been chatting to people in general, really, asking people we know if they know of anyone. It's been very much a kind of going from one person to the next. In other cases, there's been a bit more research involved. So looking up interesting old stories and then managing to get in contact with the people who have been involved. So a lot of the leatherback turtle sightings, for example, up at Harlech and also down on Skoma, we're finding things through old archives and newspapers, and then putting out kind of a call to get in touch with those people, which worked. It's amazing the power of social media, I think, at times, and also having those contacts.
I think one thing that I found is that these stories are everywhere as well. When you start looking and really think about it, we were putting together the website for the Shore-nanigans, and I thought we started putting some videos from YouTube, and ended up in a YouTube where you search and then you find all these sing things. So it's incredible there when you start looking what kind of stories there are out there. Let me just see, is there anything? So we've got a question from Jan and Ian asking, is this going to continue indefinitely? I think we would like to see it continue, because I think this is kind of something that we've set up, and Beth has put the sort of the foundation of something that, you know, hopefully will go on, because it's something that we want people to keep sending in, and hopefully we can do this. The plan is for that to happen, but we might just have a little bit of a lag at the moment before we transition over to new projects and new core work plans. Okay, we've got a question. Is this something that other coastal wildlife trusts could be inspired to do? Scotland, for example. So Beth, do you think this is something that other trusts could do?
I think everyone should do something similar. I think it's a really nice way to really bring people's stories together, and there's certainly, I think, gaps in archives that perhaps certain locations and localities don't get to submit to archives quite so much. So I think it's definitely something that could be used elsewhere. I know I was looking on, I think it was Twitter the other day, and there was something from a gentleman who'd got like 400 odd old camera type, I don't even know what they're called, that's really bad. The little camera, Nia, help me.
Slides.
Yeah. That's like showing my age, sorry guys. The old camera slides that were just going to go in the tip because he didn't need them, he didn't know what to do with them. And somebody from kind of a local history group managed to intercept him before they ended up at the tip. And there's a picture of a walrus up there, up off Scotland. I think it was off Shetland, which is mad. And those have been saved. And I think it'd be great if that kind of thing could happen everywhere. We've got this absolute wealth of knowledge and skills and pictures and memories and this fascinating life stories that really are at risk of disappearing. So I think it's something that could be done elsewhere. It's I would like to think it's been successful here, and I think it could be elsewhere, so definitely.
Yeah, agreed. So we've got a question from Joe. Joe, would you like to unmute, and you got your video there?
Video, there we are. Hello, have you got me?
There you are, you can see you.
I'm asking it because I'm crap at typing it. Yeah, I'm on a final year of a course at natural, oh God, this is my problem at the moment, sorry. I'm doing a degree in natural history at South Wales University, and I'm behind a year and I'm just finishing off my dissertation. And this sort of thing is brilliant for the natural history side of it, because after my 3 years on this university course, it sort of turned round to ecology and stuff like that, and it missed that natural history side. Mm-hmm. Is there any way of like connecting to the universities with that sort of citizen science thing? Because I would have loved to have been able to explore that while I was at uni.
Yeah, Nia, do you have anything to?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is something that, you know, in general, in a way, universities, it's a two-way thing, is that we as NGOs need to link in more with universities, and universities backwards. I think that they definitely could do with more communication, because I think like you say, in university, you know, remembering back to what I did, we did a lot of theoretical things, and we did a lot of lectures and this and that, but it's the practical side of it in terms of real world application you don't tend to see, whereas we do that side but not so much the other side. So I think there's definitely room to work together a little bit better there, and I think for me I think going to university, people go into university with this sort of passion for doing things like this, and we